As humans, sometimes there is a natural tendency for us to compare ourselves to people who are, of course, within our peer groups or sometimes even the family or our communities. And especially when it comes to finances, we tend to do a lot of comparison. And that makes us feel bad because we feel like we're left behind or we are not doing or achieving enough as compared to what our friends or people within our family are actually doing. And so in this video, we'll be looking at the 7 signs that you need to look out for. And trust me when I tell you, more often than not, people are doing well financially, but because they tend to compare and contrast the things happening or the things that they see on social media, that makes them anxious and that actually goes on to affect their confidence when it comes to setting and the subsequent attainment of their financial goals. And so, with that said, my name is Nana. I hold a master's degree in business finance. And on this channel, we discuss everything personal development and personal finance. And that brings us to the understanding of where we need to be when it comes to finances. In the book Millionaire Next Door, the authors go on to propose one thing, that in order for anyone to have a fair idea of where they are currently and where they wish to be financially, what you need to do is to assess your finances. And the best way that they propose is to calculate your net worth by age and by your gross income. So for example, if you're 40 years and you earn $100,000 at the end of the year, then your net worth should be around $400,000, holding all other factors constant. And that is something that you need to consider because it gives you a fair idea of what you should be doing and where you should be financially. And then it gives you also the confidence to assess yourself insofar as where you want to be and what you've been through is concerned. And so a fair idea in the form of a calculation to know what your net worth should be, of course, with your age and your gross income is very needful when it comes to knowing where you are and then more importantly, determining whether you're on the right track towards the attainment of your goals. And so if you've done this calculation, of course, with your age and your gross income, then it is time for us to go straight into the signs that you need to look out for in order to determine whether you're doing well financially or otherwise. And the first thing that you need to consider is an emergency fund. And so if you have an emergency fund, then that is the first sign out of the 7 that you're doing extremely well financially. Because trust me, less than 40% of all working Americans have got between $500 and $1,000 saved up in the form of an emergency fund to take care of any unforeseen circumstance that may come in the future. And so if you're able to save between 3 to 6 months of your expenses in the form of an emergency fund, then clearly that is a great sign that you're doing well when it comes to managing your finances and then working towards the attainment of your financial goals. This brings us to the second sign, and that is the fact that you spend less than you earn. Now, one of the greatest ways to build wealth in the long run is to spend less than you earn, because by so doing, it gives you more to save at the end of the month and more importantly, invest or offset any debt that you have. More often than not, what people tend to do is that they spend everything at the end of the month. That is, they live paycheck to paycheck. In the US, about 65% of all working adults actually feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck, which simply means that they don't have anything left at the end of the month. In the UK, about 31% of all working adults in the UK feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck, or they are actually living paycheck to paycheck, according to a recent study in 2024. So what you want to do is that assess yourself and try as much as possible to cut down on any expenses that might not necessarily be categorized in the form of a need. And that would help you also to check this second sign, which is also a condition for you to build wealth and to sustain it, more importantly, in the future. If you've checked the 2 earlier boxes that we discussed, then that brings us to the third point, which is that you are debt-free or close to it. So on average, the average APR for a credit card debt is 21%. And that is the main reason why people are still stuck in debt, because it is very difficult for you to offset the principal and then the interest as well. And so what people tend to do is that they shy away from all those debts and then try and then just offset the interest. But what that does is that it actually goes on to pile up in the form of debts that subsequently become quite unsustainable for most people to pay. And so if you don't have any debt that is too big for you to pay, or you settled all your credit card debts, more importantly, then that is also a sign that you are doing well financially. Probably more than even 70% of the entire working population in the US and in the UK. This brings us to the fourth sign, and that is if you're able or you're saving currently towards the future, that is in the form of pensions or any contributions being made into your 401k or your ISA or anything that is likely to bring some form of income in the near future or during your old age. That is a clear sign that you're actually on the rightful track and you're doing extremely well. Because it is very difficult in this modern day and age for you to even cover your basic needs and then go on to settle your wants and then still set aside a portion of your income towards the attainment of your goals when you grow, or to secure some form of income in the form of pension payments in the future. And so if you have all these things checked up, then that is also a sure way that you're actually working towards the attainment of your financial goals. And of course, you're doing well financially. This brings us to the fifth sign, and that is your ability to handle surprises. And this is usually done in the basic ways that we tend to know, and that is insurance. So, insurance is meant to cover you and your finances against any unfortunate circumstance or any fortuitous occurrence in the future that comes in the form of accidents that is likely also to derail you financially. And so, if you have insurance in place, that is your motor vehicle insurance, a life insurance, or home and content insurance that is also meant to cover your house or any assets that you own, then that is a clear sign that you're also doing well financially. Because one of the main reasons why 92% of people who set financial goals never tend to achieve them is simply because they are swept off their feet by the unfortunate circumstances of things that they couldn't see or foretell that are likely to happen to them, and of course to derail them financially. And so if you have insurance in place that is meant to indemnify you upon the occurrence of any circumstance in the future, then that is the surest sign that you're also doing well financially. This brings us to the sixth financial sign, and that is that you're able to invest at the end of the month. So, one of the basic ways that you can actually build wealth in the long run is to take advantage of the compound interest effect in the stock market. And that comes in the form of what is known as dollar cost averaging. And that is simply contributing a quota of your income into the stock market, probably on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, or sometimes even on a quarterly or an annual basis. So, what you want to know is that investing is one of the surest ways for you to build wealth. And so, if you have anything left at the end of the month to invest, then that is also a surest way that you're actually doing well financially. And you don't on any day have to stress or worry. And with this said, it brings us straight to the last point, which is your ability to sleep at night. Anytime that you feel less stressed or you don't worry about when your paycheck is coming in or any debt or any financial obligations that you're actually entitled to pay currently or in the future, then that is the surest way, because the peace comes with your ability. And of course, knowing that you've done everything necessary for you to provide and to protect your family in the case of any unfortunate circumstance in the future. And so that is one of the surest ways for you to determine if you're surely and you're truly doing well financially, and that is your sleep. If you're able to sleep, then at this point, that is the surest way to determine that you're doing well, and you have to just stick to whatever you're doing and then try as much as possible to repeat it, because constant repetition is what leads to wealth creation. And of course, with the consistency, the motivation, and the discipline, you're probably going to become a millionaire or a centimillionaire possibly. So thank you for spending time with us, and see you in the next video.